Welcome to Notes from the North with Kyle and Sam.
Welcome back to Notes from the North. Kyle and Sam here, and feels like a little bit weird because there's been a couple days between the game and when we're talking. Normally, we got 24 hours, or usually less than that between talking. But had a day or two to let the dust settle here. But inevitably, the Vikings lose to the Bengals in overtime. Uh, Feels a little bit like a game of two halves, but almost maybe more so three quarters and one quarter. Uh,
Yeah.
Maybe let's start here because again, Vikings get to have their fourth starting quarterback of the year,
Yeah.
fourth quarterback start a game, uh, should
Uh-huh.
say. Nick Mullins comes in. I guess what would you extrapolate from his performance? What would you say about the way that Nick Mullins played?
Start with a shout out to Josh Fry, Purple PTSD managing editor. He kind of dug up that this is the first time, if you can believe this, Sam, first time in Vikings franchise history, they've had four different quarterbacks start a game in the same season, which I found hard to believe. I didn't realize that was the case because you think before Cousins, like kind of forget like kind of late 90s, early 2000s. So there's some quarterback certainty there, stability there, and then Cousins in between. Like in between that, there's a lot of quarterback stuff going on there, right? And there's a lot of turmoil, trying different things, injuries, etc. Um, Kind of wild. This is the first time they've had four. Nick Mullins was the fourth. Um, as we've kind of suggested previously, um, you know, it could have easily only been two starting quarterbacks because were it not for the fact that he was already on the IR, there would be no Josh Jobs trade. There would be no Jaron Hall start. Like Nick Mullins was the plan. He's the dude. Again, the Vikings like this guy. They traded for him. They then give him a 2-year extension. They like him. They think a lot of him. Kirk Cousins likes him. And Nick Mullins likes Kirk Cousins. He had a great quote Mullins did in his presser last week before the game about the energy that Cousins brings, uh, and that even includes on the topic of Christmas cardigans, Mr. Cousins and Christmas cardigans. So all that to say, I think Mullins actually played well. Okay, all that rambling, needless words to say that Mullins played well. Bad mistakes, obviously. You kind of know that's the case. He came into the game. Uh, you know, Josh has been referred, Josh Fry, back to PTSD, pro PTSD. I talk about it as almost like a mini gunslinger. And that is kind of the case in a sense. If you looked at his career prior to the start, he had, I think, like 27 TDs versus 23 interceptions, right? And so you kind of have almost a 1-to-1 ratio. And even with the Vikings, you've kind of seen that in the limited time he's been able to play. Like, he will push the ball down the field. He'll give his chance. He will make mistakes. And so you got to kind of be willing to kind of live with the strikeout here and there because he's swinging the bat really hard, right? And when he connects, there's going to be some excellent stuff. Like both Addison touchdowns were wild, like wild plays from Mullins to Addison. And you could debate which one was crazier. Probably the second one. Everyone was screaming at their TV. Everyone in the stands. Probably all the coaching staff. Throw it away. Throw it away. Throw it away. Live to fight another down. He fits it in, and it's the spectacular play, right? And that's just kind of, I think, the Nick Mullins experience. He's an exciting dude, and I think I just don't think there's any way he's not starting next year or next year, next week, excuse me, right? So it's just Kevin O'Connell didn't 100% confirm it, but it's 99+%. Nick Mullins is the dude next week. And Jefferson, the last point, Jefferson uh, basically said that, yeah, Mullins, he was fantastic. He with Mullins did a really great job. The guys had confidence in him. And that's basically what you want. If you are the backup quarterback, if you go in and inspire the dudes, give them confidence, and you give them a chance down the field, that's it. That's it.
Yeah,
Like that's the mandate,
for
right?
sure. Yeah. No, I think certainly uh the turnovers were poor, and even the touchdown, like you said to Addison, that second one, like could have
Yeah.
been very poor as well.
You
Or
throw that 100 times, Sam. How many times do you think it works?
yeah, not
Not many.
Probably below 30. Even the
Yeah, not many.
well, it was
Yeah.
there was the one that Addison was coming across the field. I know that the next gen stats
Yeah.
came up about the probability of catching that ball, and uh, I think like
Yeah.
Addison made a great
I saw
play.
the graphic. I
Uh,
know the graphic you're referencing, but I can't think of the number
I think
in my head.
it was below 35. It was not high, but
Right.
I think
Completion probability percentage was 21.4.
okay, that's yeah.
There you go. So you do that play 100 times, only 21 times basically is it actually going to,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But I think this is, and I think maybe this is where we can talk a little bit more about the offense. One of the things I had actually mentioned when I was doing the podcast solo, a bit of a traumatic experience, but
Yeah, that's right.
nonetheless, was
Yeah,
who's going to be the quarterback that gets the ball into your receivers and playmakers' hands?
precisely.
And Nick
Yeah,
Mullins, I think at this point, again, we haven't seen a ton from Jaron Hall, and so it's hard to make that conclusion, but he is the best quarterback to do
yeah.
that. And he might make some mistakes, but uh, really, especially with Addison, I think you can say that uh, between that kind of three-headed monster of Jefferson, Addison,
Yeah,
and
man.
Hawkinson, they all get well six catches and seven for Jefferson. Addison goes over 100 yards. Maybe you'd almost say a little bit of a quiet day for Jefferson. 10 targets, 7 receptions, 84 yards.
Yeah,
Like by his
yeah.
standards.
By his standards. Yep.
But also I think the fact that he played a game, looked good, got through healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yep.
Lots of
Yep.
good things from there, and I think also just not to skip past a good performance by Ty Chandler as well.
Tremendous performance from Ty Chandler. Like the offense really, short of two blemishes, had an excellent day, right? Had an excellent day. And you talk about it, right? Like who's going to be able to get the ball to these dudes? I mean, I was just saying this to Sam. Like you've got a Ferrari, a Porsche, and a Range Rover. Range Rover is going to be your tight end, but you got these amazing, players. These two receivers and this tight end. You got to get somebody who can take them out of the garage and actually get them to go. You know what I mean? And what a difference from Las Vegas, what the offense was doing, to Cincinnati, to what the offense was doing. It just was basically night and day, which is more or less what you saw on those final two drives when Mullins went in. Is things just kind of came to life. All of a sudden, Mullins threw that kind of, what is it, like a 26-yard pass to Hawkinson. And yeah, there was a bit of a luck because it was tipped off the defender's hands, but that's the Mullins experience, right? And so for these next three games, short of injury, it's got to be Mullins, I would say, right? You get the Lions and then the Packers and then the Lions again. These next two, Sam, I believe, are at home, right? You're 7-7 now, still in control of your playoff fate. Not anymore with the NFC North. Now you got to hope that the Lions lose their next three to actually win the North. But in actually getting into the playoffs, it's fully within your control. Fully within your control. And Mullins, you got to think, is the best one to do that. And then you got to wonder, too, not to kind of stir controversy here, but you got to wonder as well, if Madison is healthy and ready to go next week, can you insert him as the RB1 after what Chandler just did? Or do you sprinkle him in as kind of, or do you do it as like a true timeshare, or how do you manage that? Because if you have a quarterback who throws for 300 yards and a running back who runs for more than 100 yards, and your top three pass catchers are all making plays, right? Like and again, the turnovers are the critical factor there. The defense as well, which we'll talk about in a moment, is a critical factor there. But there's enough in there that says that's basically winning formula. That's the winning formula for the Vikings of feed these three, and then if you get some solid production out of your RB, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, no, again, good problems to have that question about who to start running back.
Yeah,
Like I
that's
don't
right.
think
That's right.
they've all the running game hasn't been strong this year by any measure, but Madison has actually had a better.
Yeah.
Uh, is that too kind? Madison has done
Yeah.
better as of late, and so
Yeah.
again, good
Yeah.
problem to have. And I don't know,
Mhm.
I sometimes I think that the share is good and you keep legs fresh, and sometimes I think that some of these guys like to
I
have the
know that's the
frequency of the
thing.
ball and
Exactly. Touch it 20 times, 25 times, get into that rhythm. And that's maybe when you break one and you bust a big run in the back, you get that rhythm. Some of these guys have benefits, man.
So
Tough call.
tough
Tough
call,
call.
but that's someone else's job.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
But
Notes from the
but
North is not deciding the depth chart.
if
Yeah.
they want to call us, feel free.
Call us up. Call us up.
Call Kyle. Don't call Sam.
Yeah, well.
But I think a pretty good performance from the offense, I think is fair to say. Like you said, the
Yeah.
turnovers were costly,
Yeah.
but certainly a different performance than what we saw against the Raiders. And I think fascinating, I think, just to compare what happened last week to even just seeing what both the Vikings and the Raiders did this following or this past week. Again, Vegas putting on an absolute clinic against the Chargers. But if you think about it now, the defense has been really, it seems to be steadily getting better and better as the season has gone on. It almost feels like week by week, there's been steps, improvements, just individuals continue to get better and better. But this week felt a little bit like a step back. And I guess what I'm kind of wondering is that just, what the nature of this, it's a good offense. Again, you're missing Joe Burrow, but you still have some really legit offensive weapons with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And so is this just a team having a good quarter, or is there something about this where maybe Cincinnati saw something that might be exposed moving forward?
Yeah. Well, okay. So we'll step back even a little bit from the Bengals game. This isn't the first time that teams have kind of scored late on the Vikings. Vikings are kind of holding on to a lead late in the game, and a team, comes back and scores late. Now it's been hard to be overly critical. Like think back to Denver, right, and throwing that touchdown pass to Sutton. Like it's hard to be overly critical in a sense in a game like that, in that they've done so many things right. You know what I mean? And even the Chicago Bears game, um, is the same sort of thing. It was only a field goal, but the field goal was enough because it was a 10-9 lead for the Vikings. So field goal was enough, and there was certainly some concern about how soft, the Vikings played in those moments. With Cincinnati, it's a little more disappointing in that it's 3 touchdowns. You go into the quarter with a 17-3 lead, and that's a little bit, almost feels a bit artificial, because if I'm not mistaken, Sam, 17-3 technically going to the fourth, and I think like the first play of the fourth quarter was a touchdown. So, I was like kind of bridging that divide between the third and the fourth. But the simplest and reality is it's 17-3, and then they allow 3 touchdowns in the third quarter. Obviously, the Vikings scored the give them credit though is that they actually went out in OT and stopped Cincinnati, gave the ball back to their offense in a really favorable field position, right? So there's this kind of, and right now the Vikings defense is seventh in the NFL when it comes to points against on average. That is tremendous. Like if the season ended right now, I'll probably write about this on PTSD today. If the season ended today, the Vikings season would be remembered for 3 things, I think. Injuries, a wild amount of injuries, and not just injuries, but injuries to major positions. Turnovers, the offense is committing an insane amount of turnovers to the point of almost being absurd at times. And then the defense's progression, like the unexpected, the unbelievable turnaround from the defense to the point where if Brian Flores isn't the head coach, I don't freaking know, man. Like he's just done such incredible work. He should be a shoe-in to be a head coach somewhere. As disappointing as that will be for the Vikings to see him leave, but he has just done such amazing work. The late game stuff though is concerning. And yes, Cincinnati. So Zach Taylor seems like he's a pretty good coach. Yes, Cincinnati has talent, but there's no Joe Burrow, and you're even down Jamar Chase towards the end, right? Who's a beast. He's your WR1. He's probably a top 5 receiver in the NFL. Like he would tell you he's first overall. I don't know if you saw his presser this week, but he was saying he was first, and then talking about Jefferson and so on and so forth. But in any case, at worst, he's top 10. He's probably top 5. He's not as good as Jefferson, but he's a good player, right? And so that's concerning. You know what I mean? And some of the stuff was a little bit. How much do you tip the cap? How much do you like? You think that pass to T Higgins, where he kind of extends his arm across the goal line, like a Caleb Evans was in an excellent position when that ball was thrown. Like initially, when the camera cut to Evans, I'm saying to myself, "That's a pick." Caleb Evans is right there. It's their long dude on the Vikings long dude, and the Vikings long dude's in a really good position. He should be able to go up and make a play on that ball, but he just kind of backtracked a little too much. Higgins, of course, was there, reached across the goal line, and the rest is history. Unbelievable play from T. Higgins. Remarkable play from T. Higgins. And Browning giving his dude a chance, which if you're the backup quarterback, give your dudes a chance, right? So it's concerning, but they did give him a chance. The defense gave him a chance to win this game, and very kind of in a specific moment in overtime, stopped the Bengals, got them to punt the ball back. The Vikings offense, at that point, all you need is points. Field goal does it, right? So, man, I can't be overly critical, even if you're seeing the stuff with Denver and with Chicago, and now with whichever this team was that Vikings just played.
Bengals.
Help me out here. There you go. Just talking about them. Bengals. Haven't had enough coffee apparently. All three now. You have the offense, or the defense struggling to kind of maintain that lead, and that goes two ways. The offense can do more to help the defense. It's not solely on Flores and the D, but that is there, right? And it's there in a 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter manner, right, with the Bengals. So yeah, boys, the Lions are coming to town, right? Santa's on his way, and so too is Detroit and Dan Campbell, right? And their offense is pretty good. You know what I mean? So, Flores is going to need to be sharp. I would imagine that means let's dial up the heat on Jared Goff. Let's just jack up the pressure as best we can and force Goff to make plays with, some defenders kind of like coming down on him kind of thing. But the Lions, they're a good team, man. They're a good team. So we're going to see with those guys.
Yeah, they're a good team, but I am interested. Maybe we can transition that because I think you mentioned earlier there's 3 games left, and the Vikings continue to be in a playoff spot.
They do, yeah.
Continue
right.
to hold control of their destiny, which is encouraging. And also things went relatively well for them this weekend in terms of if you're looking at the scoreboard out of town and seeing the results, pending a game tonight where you're cheering for the Eagles to beat Seattle.
Exactly. That's right.
But maybe just as you look at the lines again, you got them 2 times in 3 weeks, and potentially, if things hold the way that they are right now, 3 times.
Exactly.
In like they
when
will
does that happen in the NFL? Three games against the same team in a 4-week stretch. Have you ever seen that happen?
No, like it is interesting how late, like I think even as you saw the schedule to see having, like I think certainly it does seem like they put those division games sometimes at the end, but to have both games against the Lions, and I think realistically, again, they're coming off a strong performance yesterday, but have been a little bit like at the start of the season they look like a wagon, and I think they've cooled down a little bit.
It seems so, yeah.
But still, you talked about the offense. You got Goff, you got Gibbs has really turned into
Jameer Gibbs is a good player,
a really good player, and I think that's even one of the things that as you think about this team and you put pressure on Goff, you got to have someone that has got an eye on Gibbs for any type of dump plays or screens. But thinking about, again, I think that Detroit, their strength would be their offense at this point. And
offense for sure.
And as strange as it sounds, it almost feels like the Vikings' strength, at least as you look at the whole body of work this season, the defense has been the better of the two. So I guess like, how do you see, or is there anything that you are particularly looking for as you think about these two teams matching up against each other?
Yeah, so I actually, if I had to pick the game right now, I'd pick the Vikings. I do have a lot of faith in Mullins. And I do actually have a fair bit of faith in Flores as well. Like I kind of like the Mullins-Flores combo in that you kind of know that Mullins is going to go for it. And there's enough offense and there's enough competence in that offensive coaching staff. Like Kevin O'Connell's actually proven to be quite a good coach this year. He's done, I mean, the Brandon Powell stuff, the tush push, yikes move. But on the whole, he's a good coach. He's had rough moments for sure, but he's a good coach. And I kind of think that Vikings offense is going to score. Detroit's defense right now, same, they're 23rd in the NFL. They're allowing on average 23.6 points against per game, right? So I tweeted about this. Not that Twitter matters, Twitter sucks, but coming into the year, there's a lot of comparing between Detroit and Minnesota, right? For obvious reasons. But one of the more specific areas was their defense, right? Because both had a really poor defense last year with the Lions and the Vikings. The Lions kind of went after it and they added some really high-end talent, right? Players both in the draft and via free agency. You think Sutton on corner, Gardner Johnson, safety, who will get hurt early in the year, but in any case, a great player, right? And then they drafted Brian Branch. They drafted Jack Campbell, that linebacker, right? Like they brought in this influx of good talent, but they maintained their DC. Meanwhile, the Vikings were a little bit more muted, a little bit more subdued with the talent that they added, kind of thing, a little bit more of a youth movement. They did add Byron Murphy and Marcus Davenport and so on and so forth, but it's a little more muted. And then they added kind of like the big ticket, Brian Flores, huge name. And right now, man, that coach ad looks better. Like you kind of have these two defenses, and it's that coaching approach that seems to have paid off, at least in the present moment, right? What that actually means for the remainder of the year and the playoffs and so on and so forth, we'll see. But I am kind of curious, can Kevin O'Connell get the best of the Lions defense? And then, because then it's a matter of, okay, can Jared Goff and Ben Johnson being the OC for Detroit, can they solve the Flores riddle? And, as you kind of mentioned, you kind of have Jahmyr Gibbs there, who is, in a lot of ways, a pretty good solution to pressure. You know what I mean? Kind of like this like really shifty, explosive, talented guy. And then you partner him with Montgomery. And the one who really should scare Vikings fans is Amon-Ra St. Brown, their top receiver. He is just ferocious. He's a top 10 receiver in the NFL. Very, very good. I don't know how well the Vikings match up with St. Brown. That might be a Byron Murphy assignment, kind of smaller and shifty versus smaller and shifty. St. Brown versus Caleb Evans doesn't seem to fit particularly well to my mind. But we'll kind of see what Flores decides to do there. Gonna have to be opportunistic. It's boring, but gonna have to take care of the football. Maintain possession of the football, not give them any free stuff. It helps that it's at the bank, US Bank Stadium kind of thing. Fans will hopefully be loud, I guess, for the Vikings' sake. It's Christmas Eve. You know what I mean? Christmas will be a lot more merry for a lot of Vikings fans if they take down the Lions. I think this one's close. Just like every Vikings game seemingly is close. The only game that hasn't been close for the Vikings is when they pretty good beat on the Packers, right? Otherwise, it's close games. I think this one's close as well. I don't think we usually do this, but I'll call it here on Monday. 31-27 for the Vikings. Can you give me your 2 cents here?
Yeah, I do feel like the Vikings certainly can win this game, and I think it would be a lot of fun, regardless of what happens, for that Week 18 matchup.
Oh man,
to me,
that'd be amazing. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Yeah,
especially
like beyond just the Vikings themselves making the postseason, but like for both teams, that would be must-see TV.
Like if that can end up being about the division, like I think regardless, Minnesota's going to have more to play for than Detroit in all likelihood, although
probably,
who knows what's going to happen. But I do think the Vikings will do, and I do think that like I wouldn't be surprised if the offense really has a really strong game.
Right.
I'm going to say 34-20 for the Vikings.
Wow. 14-point win. Okay. And here's the other one. We'll just shoehorn in there. In week 17, Sam, do you know who the Lions are playing?
Dallas.
They go to Dallas, take on the Cowboys, which, no one actually takes the Cowboys seriously. But in the regular season, sometimes they do okay things. They're like the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like in the regular season, you're thinking, wow, look at all the talent. They win these games, and then they just fall apart. right? So basically, Dallas Cowboys are the front line, right? So maybe the Cowboys can win in week 17 and they get that week 18 scenario that Sam was just talking about.
Yeah. And given that the Vikings need to beat Green Bay,
Fine. It's Green Bay.
yeah.
I mean, we'll see. Those are the famous last words.
I was going to say,
We'll
remember what we
see.
said about Chicago?
Yeah, that's right. It's just Chicago.
About Denver to a lesser extent. Yeah.
Exactly.
Good. Well, yeah, maybe we can wrap up there. Again, programming note, the Vikings, I know we're entering a bit of a holiday season.
Right.
We'll try to put something out, I think, probably on the 26th.
Yeah.
Rather than
We'll
recording,
see. Yeah.
we probably aren't recording on our Christmas morning.
No.
If someone wants to pay for it, then maybe we can do that.
Yeah,
But
man. You got enough money coming our way, then we'll make it happen.
we could sell out and leave our kids at the Christmas tree while we record.
That's right.
We record a podcast, but
yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, we will plan to probably have something out on the 26th. But hope that everyone has a good holiday season, whatever that looks like for you. Enjoy the football that will come with that. And again, Kyle mentioned a little bit earlier just some of the articles that have been written, but purpleptsd.com, vikingsterritory.com. Be sure to go check those out. Have a good week, and we'll be back next week. Thanks. Bye.